Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really important, maybe a bit heavy, but so necessary. It's about finding yourself again, reclaiming your identity after complex trauma.
Yeah, and the sources we're looking at today really focus on the practical side, like the actual work involved in rebuilding who you are. It's not just about coping, right?
Hmm.
It acknowledges that trauma often forces life into survival mode,
Exactly.
and that can kind of blur the edges of yourself. You might lose touch with what you like, or, your own voice, maybe even your sense of purpose. So we're going to unpack the steps to sharpen those edges again.
That's a great way to put it. And what's really central here, what the trauma specialists we looked at emphasize, is that healing isn't just about managing symptoms, it's fundamentally about reclaiming identity.
Okay.
It shifts the whole thing from just trying to cope passively to actively becoming. So
Yeah.
our mission really is to walk through the stages of this rebuilding from the very bottom, the foundation, all the way up to living more authentically. All right, let's get into it. That analogy, about building a house on a shaky foundation, it feels
Yep.
like that totally applies here. So, according to the experts, like at the CPTSD Foundation, where does this big task of defining yourself actually start?
It starts squarely with the body, and getting back in touch with basic needs. They're really clear that the first stage has to be reconnecting with the physical self.
Why the body first?
Because if your body doesn't feel safe, if it's constantly on high alert, your nervous system just doesn't have the capacity, the bandwidth to let your mind safely explore something as vulnerable as identity. It's still scanning for danger.
Okay, that makes sense. So the sources mention things like nourishing meals, getting enough rest, gentle movement, staying hydrated. They sound almost deceptively simple.
Hmm.
But hang on, for someone who's maybe spent years just trying to get through the day, maybe in a situation where consistent self-care was just impossible, nourishing meals could feel huge. Like, where do you even begin with that? Are there smaller steps?
Oh, absolutely. And that's such a crucial point. It's not about suddenly achieving some perfect wellness routine overnight. Forget perfection.
Right.
The key is what they call micro-consistency, tiny, repeatable actions that start to build proof of safety for the nervous system. It might not be a full meal. Maybe it's just making sure you drink one glass of water intentionally.
Okay.
Or maybe it's lying down for just 5 minutes, deliberately trying to be still.
Hmm.
Or choosing one specific food, something easy that, gives you a bit of energy. Small things.
So why is that tiny consistency so vital? It feels almost trivial sometimes.
It feels trivial, but its significance is huge. The source material frames these acts not as luxuries, not as self-indulgence, but as the actual groundwork. They help you remember or maybe teach your nervous system for the first time that you're alive, worthy, and real.
Alive, worthy, and real. Wow.
Yeah, that physical stability, that sense of being basically okay in your body, even just for moments at first. That's the prerequisite. It proves repeatedly that you've reached a baseline of safety. And then you can start to turn inward for the deeper exploration.
Which links right back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
If you feel totally lost, like you don't even know where to start defining yourself, just tending to the basics one tiny step at a time isn't putting it off. It's literally step one.
Exactly. It is the work.
Okay, so that physical grounding allows for the next phase, which is exploring the inner world. Once the body feels a bit safer, where does that energy go?
It starts to move inward towards introspection. Once survival isn't the only thing running the show, the nervous system can actually allow for a bit of curiosity about the self.
Right.
And this means asking those really necessary questions. Sometimes they feel incredibly scary, though. Like, what do I genuinely like? Not what I was told to like or what kept me safe, but what do I like?
Hmm.
Or what values feel true for me now? What are my boundaries? Questions like that.
But this is where it gets tricky, right? Because for someone who's survived complex trauma, answering those questions can feel, well, really weird or even dangerous,
Yeah.
especially if your past environment, forced you to constantly prioritize everyone else's needs, maybe as a survival strategy like fawning.
Mhm.
Then asking, what do I want,
Yeah.
can feel incredibly selfish or just blank. That inner critic kicks in hard.
It absolutely does. And that critic, you have to remember, was probably a survival mechanism itself. It's arguing, essentially, hey, if you start asking for what you want or having preferences, you'll be rejected or you'll be unsafe again.
So how do you build an identity when your past experience basically screamed that you shouldn't even have one?
This is where a really key insight from the sources comes in. It's critical. Identity isn't built through some sudden revelation. It's built through repetition.
Repetition, not revelation.
Yeah. We need to kind of dismantle this myth that you'll just wake up one day and magically know who you are. It doesn't work like that,
Right.
especially after trauma. Instead, you build it, or maybe rediscover it slowly through small, repeated choices that feel authentic to you now.
Can you give us some examples? Like, what does that repetition look like day to day? Because find yourself sounds huge, but repetition feels more manageable.
It is more manageable. It's a framework. So repetition could mean consistently choosing to wear a color you actually like, even if you used to worry it was too much or drew attention.
Oh,
Or maybe it's practicing saying no to one small request each week that you genuinely don't have the energy or desire for. Even if it feels uncomfortable at first, it could be carving out just 15 minutes a day for something you enjoy, something that feels like play. Even if that inner critic calls it unproductive or silly, like doodling or listening to music, each small choice, repeated over time, acts like a little brick. You're laying the foundation for this emerging sense of self.
so patience is really key here.
Essential. It's about honoring those small yeses and nos as they come up. It's an ongoing process.
Okay. And that shift from just thinking about it internally to actually making active choices, that seems to lead us right into the third phase. This one moves beyond just introspection and brings in action and connection. It focuses a lot on play and curiosity.
Yes, exactly. Because identity isn't just formed in your head, it's lived.
So how do the sources talk about these acts of joy or play? Are they just nice to haves or are they more fundamental?
They frame them as absolutely fundamental acts of self-recovery. One source uses this beautiful phrase describing each joyful act as an act of rebellion against what trauma took from you.
Wow, an act of rebellion. I like that.
Isn't that powerful? It reframes play not as frivolous, but as reclaiming territory. So it's about doing things, anything really, that sparks even a flicker of lightness or interest.
Like what?
Could be drawing just for the sake of it, no outcome needed, getting your hands dirty gardening, maybe dancing around the kitchen while making tea. Or, and this is crucial, spending time with people who feel genuinely safe, people around whom you don't have to wear a mask, you can just be.
Okay, and connecting this back to the bigger picture, this is where the neurobiology comes in, right? Like the work therapist Deb Dana talks about. She links this kind of connecting with yourself through play and with safe others to supporting the ventral vagal state.
Exactly. And that's not just jargon, it's really practical. For
Hmm.
anyone not familiar, the ventral vagal state is basically your nervous system zone for social engagement and safety. It's regulated by the vagus nerve.
Right.
When your system is stuck in survival mode, fight, flight, or that free shutdown state, all your energy, biologically, is going towards detecting threats. You literally don't have the physiological resources available for things like curiosity or playfulness.
Your body's too busy trying to survive.
Precisely. But when you intentionally engage in things that bring joy or connect with someone who makes you feel genuinely safe and seen, you send signals of safety deep into your brainstem. It calms those defense systems down. And when that threat response quiets down, your brain resources get reallocated. They're freed up. Suddenly there's energy for curiosity, for creativity, for exploring who you are. That ventral vagal state is the state where you can safely try on new ways of being, express preferences, engage authentically without that constant underlying fear of punishment or rejection that trauma often hardwires in.
So joy and safety are directly linked to being able to explore your identity.
Inextricably linked. You need that feeling of safety to allow the exploration to happen.
Okay, that's a really powerful connection. So you've got the stable physical foundation, you've started the inner questioning,
Hmm.
maybe through repetition, and now you're actively trying things out, testing preferences in this safe ventral vagal space. But this is often where another big hurdle comes up, right? Perfectionism, self-criticism.
You nailed it. That's a huge one. Just as you start making choices that feel more aligned, more you, that old inner critic often jumps back in with both feet.
Yeah.
It starts demanding you fix yourself faster, or that you perform this new identity perfectly, without any mistakes. This brings us to phase 4, which is all about navigating that internal struggle.
How do you move past that?
Well, the crucial shift the sources talk about is moving away from this really exhausting idea of having to fix yourself The word fix itself implies you're broken.
Good point.
Instead, the focus shifts towards alignment.
Alignment instead of fixing. Tell me more about that. That feels different.
It is different. It changes the whole energy of it. If you stop focusing on correcting past perceived flaws or trying to erase the impact of trauma, which is impossible anyway, and instead focus on aligning with the person you're becoming, it takes some of the pressure off.
So practically speaking, instead of thinking, oh, I messed up again, I need to fix that broken part of me, the question becomes more like, what?
The question becomes something simpler, more forward-looking, like, okay, in this moment, what action, however small, feels most aligned with the person I am growing into? What feels most true right now?
Ah, okay. So it's oriented towards your future self, not constantly looking back at deficits.
Precisely.
Whoa.
It replaces that draining internal checklist of flaws with an active, hopeful choice in the present moment. And just to wrap up this phase, the sources are really clear. Living authentically isn't about achieving perfection. It's not about reaching some flawless ideal state,
That's a relief.
isn't it? Instead, it's simply about being present and true in your choices, your interactions right now, even when those choices feel messy or imperfect or you're still figuring things out. The goal is alignment, flow, not flawlessness.
That feels much more doable, much more human, especially considering the effort involved in getting through these stages.
It really is a journey. So, just to recap, we've covered these 4 key phases of reclaiming identity. We start with phase 1, building that physical foundation, tending to basic needs to create safety.
Right. The body first.
Then phase 2,
Yeah.
the introspection, asking those questions, defining values and preferences, but crucially, through small, repeated actions, not waiting for a big revelation.
Repetition, yeah.
Phase 3 brought in action through joy and connection, using play, curiosity, and safe relationships to regulate the nervous system into that ventral vagal state where exploration feels possible.
The act of rebellion.
Exactly. And finally, phase 4, shifting from fixing to alignment, making choices based on the person you're becoming, aiming for presence and truth, not perfection.
What really stands out is how conscious and active this whole process is. It's definitely not passive. It requires deliberate, repeated effort. So as you listening continue on your own path of reclaiming identity, we really encourage you to maybe reflect on these stages. The sources we drew from have some great prompts for that.
And maybe, just for today, here's a final thought to consider. Try to notice one specific self-critical thought that tends to pop up for you often. You know, the one maybe it says you should be further along or different than you are? Just notice it. And then instead of getting pulled down that familiar path of arguing with it or beating yourself up, see if you can consciously choose one single small action today that feels aligned with the values of the person you are actively becoming.
So maybe that's making that simple meal we talked about earlier, or spending 10 minutes doing something just for fun. Or maybe it's prioritizing one tiny preference of your own, even if it feels a bit selfish at first.
Exactly. Just one small choice. Choose alignment over self-critique. Because that single choice repeated over time, that's where the real power of reclaiming your identity lies.
That's a powerful place to leave it. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. All the source materials are linked if you want to explore them further. Until next time, keep digging.